how's it going? I'm IlaGolden and welcome to my vlog. So, on today's vlog, I'm going to be talking about the Silkoneon caves. The reason I want to tackle this breed first is because, if I were to be any breed within my multiverse, this is the breed that I would be. They're the ones that I enjoy writing the most. They're the ones that I think I have the most fun with. Not necessarily for any particular reason. Just I have a particular fondness of this breed. So the thing which distinguishes this breed from any other breed is their Silkoneon, which is their inner animal, which they have the ability to transform into, and that is their distinguishing feature. No matter which of the Circle of Six, because they only existed in the Circle of Six, and no matter which one of those realities that you find them in, they will have that ability to turn into their inner animal, and they are the only breed that has the ability to do that, to have their human form and their animal form. So it is very much their defining feature. That is what makes them Silkoneon. They are also all full elementalists rather than singular or dual or whatever else. So they've got all 8 elementals at their disposal. And that doesn't necessarily make them overpowered as a breed, because they are very pacifist mostly in their nature. And they are very they're more interested in the fact that they are in essence part animal than they are in the fact that they are full elementalists. And it's part of their social structure and part of the way they have build their society that very much includes the idea that they have to respect both sides of themselves and both sides of who they are, which is the human and the animal. So in their human form, they have ways of referring to themselves and ways of acting, and ways of socially structuring themselves, which reflects the animal in them. And when they're in their animal form, they have ways of socially structuring themselves and whatever else to reflect the human in them. So they are very aware of the fact that they are, in essence, 2 beings at the same time. And that's probably part of the reason why I like them as a breed. And who doesn't want to be able to turn into their favourite animal? Not that it's quite as simple as that. They don't get to choose what animal they turn into. For the most part, it is inherited, so through family lines. So if your parents happen to be wolves, then you're probably going to be a wolf. But it's not exclusive in that sense. But whatever animal you are born as, that is the only animal you will ever be able to transform into. So it's not like they get a choice. They're most likely to inherit their Silkoneon from their parents and have the same animal group or species as their parents, but sometimes they will have something completely different, and there's necessarily no reason for them to have something different. It just happens to be how it turned out on that particular occasion, I guess. As well as having their human and their animal form, they also have an in-between form known as the Silkoneon form, and this is the bit that probably makes them not OP by any means, because it reduces their intelligence, whereas in their human form and in their animal form they have their normal level of intelligence. If they're in the Silkoneon form, this half state, they don't have any of their intelligence at all. It's very much reduced down to a very, very basic level, but in exchange for that, they are a lot stronger than they would be in either form, both in terms of their physical strength and in terms of their magical capability. So it's one of the reasons why, when the Standing find out about this in the Circle of Six, that they find a way of trapping the Silkoneons in that form and using it as a weapon, and that's why the whole disconnection kind of happens. and there are a lot more details to that story. But I don't want to get into it too much because it is sort of plot lines that I have used and have utilised in some of my work, but it's stuff that, you know, through my writing itself I do a much better job of than I could just explaining it. So I think I'm just going to stick to like very, very basic details right now. I think I don't need to go into more than that because I've written so much more than that, and certainly if you want a better explanation, go read the fanfic or go check out the Blood, Friendship and Marriage book that is also available on Amazon. Yes, definitely needs to be reworked and brought up to my current writing standards, but it has a very good rendition of the disconnection, or the start of disconnection story. So it is the first book in a series, and the rest of the series does continue the disconnection story arc and how the Circle of Six become fully disconnected. But as the sort of beginning of that, it's very well done. But likewise, you get a lot of it in the fanfic series as well, so check out the tales if you don't want to spend any money. You'll get a fairly decent version of it, or the version of it relevant to that particular version of events within the Circle of Six. And yes, the fanfic does fall into one of the realities within the Circle of Six. If you have no idea what I'm talking about with the Circle of Six, I would recommend going and watching my vlog on the multiverse, where I do a little bit more of an explanation of it. But we're here to talk about the Silkoneons, so let's talk about the Silkoneons. So obviously the Silkoneons have featured in my fanfic, so that's probably one of the reasons why I love them so much. Although I think the idea that they can turn into animals is probably the main reason why I love them so much, because I want that ability. I don't care what my inner animal is supposed to be. I just love the ability, or the idea of having the ability to turn into it. Not so keen on the Sillen form and the drawbacks that lie in there, but very, very interested in, you know, being able to turn into an animal. I think that would be an amazing ability. So, like, as I said, that's probably one of the reasons why I like the breed so much. As I sort of referred to it by two names, or sort of by two names, the Silkoneus Macamicaian name, and then Silkoneon, which is obviously short for Silkoneus Macamicaian. The reason they have such a long name is to do with their origins. So they are the daughter breed of the Odrayans, and in terms of the multiverse, contextually in terms of the multiverse, being a daughter or a son breed basically means that you have evolved from another breed, either through a slow process of evolution or through a sudden process of evolution. And for the Silkoneons, it's a sudden process of evolution where select members of what was then the Odrayan breed suddenly evolve into the Silkoneons via certain events, and I have actually written a full version of those events for one of the realities within the Circle of Six, which I do eventually plan on publishing, so I'm not gonna not gonna go into too many details with that, because I think I write it better when I'm writing it as a story than I do necessarily explaining it. But the breed itself, in basic details, are named after the first four who evolved into Silkoneons. So Sil Ashmar, Koneos Keoso, Makar Odray, and Makay Lutonai. So Sil, Koneos, Makar, Makay. And then the Eons is just because it sounded better with that on the end. I don't have a better explanation than that for why you have the Eons on the end. The Silkoneon short is the name that other breeds use with them, and they sort of adopt themselves after the disconnection, after the reconnection begins to happen in like the modern part of the multiverse. They originally don't use it themselves. They originally don't like the shield themselves, but after being so far removed from their culture for such a long time, they do sort of adopt it themselves a little bit more. And it's not that they've lost the pride for it. It's the pride is slightly different when you don't have the same social context that you had originally. And originally they had a lot of pride for their full name and for their origins. And the society itself, there are lots of interesting little nuances, lots of interesting little ways that they go about conducting things. For example, they have what are referred to as the four ruling houses, which is the Ashmars, the Chaoses, the Odres, and the Lutonais. Obviously, the descendants of their first four members. And the reason they are sort of like the ruling houses, and rather than just having like one specific ruler, is it's more diplomatic that way. It's more fair to have different people in control of different things that can come together and rule together and rule separately and at the same time. I don't know. It's just how they decided it was to be. With the Ashmar sort of taking the figurehead of the four, at least in terms of culturally seen as being the figurehead of the four, and the Lutonines being sort of thought of as being almost the everyman connection of the four, and the other two sort of being somewhere in between. And again, it's all about balance. It's all about social construct and social balance. I do love them so much, and I would want to be an Ashmar. Not because I'd necessarily want the power of being an Ashmar, but I think in terms of how I use Ashmar characters in the stories, they tend to live very interesting lives. They tend to have very interesting experiences, and I'd love to have life as interesting as theirs. But then you could probably say the same for any member of the four leading houses, the four head houses. Just because they are very different characteristically. They are very different people. They do have different responsibilities. They do have different likes and dislikes and different passions and different preferences. They're different animals for a start. With the Ashmars traditionally being black cats, the Lutonais traditionally being wolves of any variety, although usually silver. The Chaoses are usually black birds, as in birds which are black, rather than black birds specifically. So they could be like ravens or magpies or anything like that. And the Lutonais usually, not the Lutonais, the Drays usually being white birds of any variety, like doves or seagulls. I guess they're white birds. Can't think of quite as many white birds. So yeah, they're not very similar, not very dissimilar at the same time. But yeah, I think even if I wasn't going to be a member of one of the four head houses, then I would still love being Silkoneon. Because there is a big emphasis within the society of your connection to others and your relationships with others, and they are very socially compassionate and they are very inclusive, whether it's within their various packs or between packs or whatever. And by that I mean obviously this is a little bit what I was talking about in the breeds episode, where you could break down the Silkoneon breed further by people who are wolves or canine, and people who are cats or feline and stuff like that. But they don't. Yes, there are certain events that might be more towards one particular animal syntoi than another, but for the most part they try to be as inclusive as possible. For the most part they try to include everybody in everything, yes, there are certain events which are more tailored for one thing than for another thing, and some of that sometimes has to do with like religious aspects, like one particular event that I do write about is the running of the wolves, which also includes any other canine species, but that is specifically for the celebration of the god of the moon, and obviously, you know, wolves are very heavily associated with the moon, and when I get into the 10th order a little bit more, wolves in particular do have a strong tie-in to the particular god of the moon that I have created. So it makes sense for that event to be exclusive to the canine breeds. Having said that, the others, you know, the other breeds do have their own celebration. It's just they're not on the run itself. So it's not you can't celebrate this particular thing because you're not canine. It's the run itself is for the canines, but everybody else can have a bit of a party. And I think that's kind of what I like so much about the Silkoneon society. It's just because we said this particular event is better suited for this doesn't mean we're not going to do something for everybody else so that everybody else feels like they're included. Although I do think it's mostly the turning into animals. I know I've mentioned that already. I just think, you know, if I could, I would definitely turn into an animal. At will. Then it would be a cat. I think I can sum up my liking of the Silkoneon breed in just that one sentence. I would turn into a cat if I could. This is my self-indulgence. Yeah, so as I said, I've not gone into a huge amount of detail with the Silkoneons because I've done a much better job of it in Tale Saga. So if you're interested, check out the Tale Saga. It's the first book in the series is linked in the description below, and it is free to read, so, you know, good luck there. If you want to know a little bit more about the Tale Saga, I do have a vlog about it, so go check that out. See, if you're not decided yet whether it be something you'd be interested in, go check that out, and then, you know, if you are, check it out. So I think on the next one I'm going to continue talking about the dominant breeds, and if you want to know what I mean by dominant breeds, then if you haven't already, check out the vlog on the breeds where I sort of explain what that term means. Yeah, if you've watched it already, don't worry about it, you should know what I'm talking about. So anyway, I think I'm going to continue going through the dominant breeds, so I think the next two vlogs will cover the Odrayans and the Standing, and I think I'm going to do the Odrayans next, just because they feed off, or because they've got the stronger connection to the Silkoneons. I can sort of maybe finish off a little bit more about the Silkoneons whilst talking about the Odrayans, and everything will make a little bit more sense, maybe. So, the next vlog will be on the Odrayans. I hope this hasn't been too rambly and not very informative. I don't know, as I said, the thing with the Silkoneons is that I've written with them so much that me trying to explain it just doesn't seem to do it justice when I've written it so much better than I could ever explain. I hope I've gotten that across, and I hope it's made you curious. As I said, if you're curious, yeah, fanfic, go read. Anyway, so next vlog, Odrayans. Hope to see you then. But for now, see ya.